Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a story that honestly just completely defies belief. We're looking at a man who is a king at just 20 years old, a guy who became a literal legend by the time he hit 30, and someone who, in just over a single blistering decade, carved out a massive empire stretching all the way from Greece to India. We are, of course, talking about Alexander the Great. He truly was the ultimate architect of empire.
Think about it like this. Before Rome, before Christ, there is Alexander. It really sets the stage for us, doesn't it? When we think of the ancient world, it's so easy to just jump straight to the Roman Empire. But long before the Caesars came around, Alexander was out there literally redrawing the map of the known world. He wasn't just some brute conqueror, though. He was an absolutely undefeated military genius, sure, but he was also a philosopher king, a brilliantly educated leader who carried this deep, unwavering belief that he was entirely destined for greatness.
But with a legacy that massive, it's pretty easy to lose the actual human being in the shadow of all that legend. Okay, let's dive into this. Who was the actual man behind the myth? Let's peel back the layers and see exactly where this incredible drive came from.
So our story kicks off in 356 BC, in the ancient Macedonian capital of Pella. And look, Alexander wasn't exactly born from nothing. He was the son of King Philip II, who was a seriously formidable ruler in his own right, and the fiercely ambitious Queen Olympias. So from day one, Alexander is completely surrounded by power, high-stakes strategy, and tales of legendary feats. There's this one moment from his youth that perfectly captures his whole vibe: taming the massive wild horse Bucephalus. This was a horse that literally no one else could manage. But young Alexander, never short on confidence, saw what everyone else missed and casually claimed him as his own.
Now, what's really interesting about this is contrasting the two massive influences on his young mind. On one side, you have his tutor, and not just any tutor, but the legendary philosopher Aristotle. Aristotle sharpened Alexander's mind and instilled this passionate love for Homer's heroes. He taught him how to think, how to reason, and how to appreciate culture. But then, on the flip side, you've got his dad, King Philip II. Now, Philip wasn't exactly sitting around focusing on poetry. He was busy mapping out a very specific, highly aggressive destiny of military conquest, specifically the dream of taking down the vast Persian Empire. Alexander is basically the explosive combination of both of these forces.
And man, let's see how that combination builds into just an unstoppable force. In 334 BC, Alexander crosses into Asia. And honestly, the most incredible part, he never looked back. Facing absolutely overwhelming odds, he crosses the sea and kicks off this relentless, snowballing campaign that would completely shake the foundations of the ancient world.
Let's break down exactly what that relentless momentum looked like on the ground, because the speed and scale of these victories are just staggering. He faced down the mighty Persian king Darius III, defeating him in these huge, epic clashes at Issus and Gaugamela, and ultimately claimed the throne of Asia for himself. But he didn't stop there. He laid siege to and conquered the supposedly impregnable island city of Tyre. Then he just marches into Egypt, casually gets himself crowned pharaoh, and founds the great, enduring city of Alexandria. For 11 continuous years, Alexander marched his army eastward, completely undefeated, and with every single step, he was spreading Hellenistic culture, Greek ideas, art, and language across the entire known world.
But I want us to just pause here for a second. The year 326 BC marks the limits of his ambition. Because it turns out, even the greatest, most fiercely burning ambitions have a breaking point. That relentless forward march, that unbroken chain of incredible victories, it all eventually slammed into an immovable wall.
And the crazy thing is, that wall wasn't an enemy army. It was his own men. In 326 BC, the army mutiny. Think about it from their perspective. These soldiers had faced overwhelming odds time and time again. They were completely exhausted by years of continuous brutal fighting thousands of miles from home. And finally, they were just physically worn down by the incredibly harsh, humid jungles of India. They simply refused to go one step further. So Alexander, the undefeated king, was forced to turn back. This ultimate dream of reaching the literal ends of the earth was officially over.
Which brings us to a very somber historical focal point just 3 years after that mutiny. In 323 BC, at the absolute height of his power, Alexander the Great fell ill and died in the city of Babylon. He had made it back from the fringes of India, back to the heart of his massive new domain, and in that ancient city, the man who had survived countless brutal battles and sieges just suddenly succumbed to sickness.
So the crucial point is, he was just 32 years old. 32! Just let the tragedy and the absolute shock of that abrupt end sink in for a second. A life burning with so much intensity, extinguished so incredibly early. His empire was divided, but his legacy endured. Without its central architect, his vast territory fractured immediately. Yet the spread of Greek language and culture that he kicked off continued globally. This cultural bedrock actually paved the way for the rise of the Roman Empire, and by extension, laid the very foundation for the modern world we live in right now. The division of his territory paradoxically secured a cultural legacy that totally outlasted any physical borders.
It really brings to mind a powerful, evocative phrase that cements his eternal status in our collective memory. The man who wept because there were no more worlds to conquer. He remains, without question, history's greatest general, a figure driven by a hunger so immense that the entire known world simply wasn't enough to satisfy it. 356 to 323 BC. Just 32 years on this earth. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on. How could a single, flawed, mortal human being permanently rewire the entire course of human history in such a short amount of time? It's an incredible testament to the power of ambition, education, and just sheer force of will. Thank you so much for joining me to explore